1.55%, 1.7% compensated grade. That's the New Hartford Depot. That's kind of a little caboose. I don't really know the full story on that one. This train's going to start up Paris Hill. It was the eve of retirement of one of the senior engineers. Got it all written up. It's a fantastic story. Just after that, this is a U-25B. They called them U-boats, and this one decided to dive. That's Sequoia Creek at Green's Crossing near Paris Station up on top of the hill. And I happened to arrive there just moments later. That's the crew, that's the engineer, track foreman, the fireman, a couple local kids. They probably should have been wearing life vests, I guess, being in a U-boat. Last day of Conrail on the blue line. As I said, beer was always big in Utica. This is the McGrath Warehouse, since located on the New York Mills branch. Last day of Conrail on the blue line. Here we see Conrail again on their last day. He's coming off Schuyler Street. This was the DL&W. Used to be a diamond here. It's just a switch now, but that was the diamond crossing between the two railroads. Back in DL&W days, here's how things looked. And that was their access to Union Station and the New York Central Interchange. EL got it, or Lackawanna initially stub-ended it, called it the Fay Street Spur. Here we see an RS3 in Erie Lackawanna days at the corner of Court Street and Fay. Last day of Conrail, the final moments, the final goodbyes. It was a pretty sad day for the guys that had always worked there. They felt really bad that day. Powerman Sal Battaglia, conductor Lester Conklin waving, Sal up in the tower, last coffee in the tower. NYS&W took over in April 1982, and lo and behold, some passenger trains ran to Richfield Springs. That's the Lehigh Valley 353. It was Dick Horseman's car at the time. I was in the cab with engineer Durwood Carman making that run over to the Springs, August of '82. This is the first director's train to come down from Utica after the NYS&W takeover, and he came over from Syracuse. Went up the Syracuse side, over the Central, into Utica, and then back down to Binghamton, like a circle tour. Well, apparently there was an old-time agreement, because we find references to this all the way back to the early 1800s. Lackawanna trains moving between Utica and Syracuse for inspection and private car use. Here's August of '66, and EL trains come north with Ray Kaminsky running. He's looking back for signals to do his runaround. They'll shove back out on the track 2 at Utica on New York Central. New York Central engineer Fran McMyler peels the throttles open into notch 8. And we're off to the races to Syracuse. And a nice story about that. The fireman on that job writes that up, how they were kind of shocked at the speed they were running over the Penn Central to Syracuse. These engines aren't used to this kind of stuff. Well, they were, but not in Utica branch language. Another Delaware Otsego NYS&W inspection train. Got Joe Dillon, Joe White, who's here today, Gene Treepass, who some of you know. Look at the NYS&W days, double stack detour, April of '87. A lot of detour trains ran on this line, so it came in handy, even though everybody said, well, it's not worth much, but it sure did. Jim Farrell's running. You still here, Jim?
Yeah.
Guy, it's running. If you got any questions, he's here. And then they also had the Pine Camp National Guard trains that came out of northern New Jersey. And they'd run up to Utica interchange with the New York Central. And the Central would take the trains up to Pine Camp, later Camp Drum, later Fort Drum, up by the Watertown area. Trains also ran up the Syracuse side. There'd be fleets of these. Well, in passenger train days, they dead had the power down on the passenger train. But they got diesels, even though they were still running passengers in '49. They dead had the diesels down running light, so here's F units running light after dropping their train at Utica. The big train masters even got into it. Tony Rock's here. He's got 2 train masters. He's dropped his train at Union Station. He's running back light to Binghamton in 1954. So don't ever say they didn't do it. There it is. Another almost unknown thing that happened, every summer, passenger trains would run from Hoboken to Oxford for camp kids, camps Oxford and Guilford. So they'd deliver the kids and they'd go to their camp, and then later in the season, when they're ready to come home, they deadhead the train up, load them up, take them back to the city. This is a 1962 trip bringing the kids in. We see them parked at Oxford unloading to go to the camp. Only picture I've ever seen of this. But they also used E8s, and they also, on one trip, had Elco PAs. The D&H piled them up in Bainbridge in 1966, so they ran detours over the Penn Central. They came into Utica. Here's the D&H crew. This is MB2. He's sitting at Utica waiting for his Erie Lackawanna pilots who will take him to Binghamton. And they also ran the big 6-axle Alco Century 628s. Got Miles Powell here. He's growling up Paris Hill, up through Clayville, just raising the dead with his power. 99 car train today. I remember seeing that. I was sitting home. We could see the tracks from our living room, and I remember that train coming past the house. That was PB2. Washouts closed the line in 2006 and virtually destroyed the whole south end of the railroad from Norwich to Shenango Forks. That was never fixed. More washouts came in 2013. This is Earlville in 2013, the July 4th washout. Thing was a mess. And one of my roles in life at that time, I was an engineering consultant, and my job was to put that south end of the railroad back together again. So I was a project manager and engineer on that. We put all that back together in 2016, 10 years after the initial washouts. And there's one of the trains running north in 2017. Business never caught on again. Business in transportation logistics changed, customers changed. Shenango County IDA funded it. They've changed, and more washouts came. Now, how many 500-year washouts can you get in 10 years, right? And one of them was a 1,000-year washout. But, and I had my issues with putting that back together. I actually ended up retiring off the NYS&W as Vice President of Engineering and Mechanical. And I had the whole S&U between Binghamton and Syracuse, Binghamton and Utica. I had the Delaware Division from Binghamton down to Sparrowbush, then from Warwick-Pelham Road, everything east to Marion Junction. So I tried putting it back together. We had another washout in 2019, the Halloween washouts, as we were trying to repair the earlier washouts on the Utica branch south end. And Halloween 2019, we lost 16 out of 22 miles from the north end, where the real customers were, Sangerfield to Utica. So it took us 3 weeks to piece that back together. So I think I know the line pretty well at this point. So the line was dormant for a number of years. I retired in 2021, and the first train in 5 years ran through from Binghamton to Utica on December 4th, 2023, captured here. You see him coming through Earlville. That's where I grew up. That happens to be my dad watching it go through. So was that the last train? Well, you know, we really don't know for sure, but that's the end of the program. Thanks for watching, and I got to say the Utica Division was a really good time railroad. And if you want to know anything more about it, there's the book. And it's available here. The Utica and Mohawk Valley Chapter NRHS published it, and they've been a really great resource on that. Really great bunch of guys. Harry Lanz, Bill Mull, John Kozlowski, they're all here today. I'd say stop, say hello to them and get to know what they're doing up there in Utica and all the great things. But this is one of them, and I thank them for it, and I thank everybody for coming.
Okay, thank you.